Hello YouTube, this is Shirley426, and today we have the review of the Premium Bandai exclusive, or P-Bandai exclusive, Robot Damashii Lancelot Trial. So, I can't say I know who specifically piloted this Nightmare frame, or where exactly at what part of the original Code Geass series it's from. What I mean by that is that I'm not really sure, like most of these variants are like usually seen or mentioned in the side story stuff of the original Code Geass series, so you would have to read a specific manga or a novel or play a specific game to see this Nightmare frame. So I can't say I know that, but the main reason why I got this is because after some research I've noticed that the Lancelot Trial, as the name implies, was another variant for a mass production type of the Lancelot. So as far as I know, the Lancelot was a very successful Nightmare frame, so what they were trying to do is mass produce it. So they were making variants, they were doing making a lot of variants to succeed in mass producing it, and one of them was this. So, but in the end, this was never actually mass produced. The later successor of the Lancelot mass production type would become the Vincent. So this one was basically only a few of them were made, and of course spec-wise I believe it was actually better than the original Lancelot, and obviously the main reason why it did not get mass-produced would be, I would assume, would be the cost, because it was still not cheap enough to manufacture the actual Nightmare frame. Alright, so let's see what we got. So as usual, we're going to go over our usual routine on showing the components first. So up to this point I have only reviewed the Robot Damashii Vincent. That's related, the stuff that I have reviewed that is related to the actual Lancelot was number one, the Robot Damashii Vincent, the 1-35 scale Vincent model kit from Bandai, and then the Lancelot from Bandai as well, the 1-35 kit. So up to this point I still do not own the original Lancelot Robot Damashii figure. Okay, so let's see what we got. So first of all, what you get, of course, is obviously hand-wise, we get the fist hands on the hands for left and right, and then we get 4 slash Harkins, 2 on the sides, and then 2 on the arms. Other than that, I believe there's no weapons on the Nightmare frame itself. Alright, so other than that, let's see what we got. So for weapon-wise, here we have the basics. So we get the MVS, which is the Mazer Vibration Sword. So we get 2 different swords. Number one is the folded up version, which you actually put in the sheath, and like that. You can plug it into the sheath. Come on, that goes in like that. And then, yeah, this is the non-operating version as well. And then later, and then we get these ones. The open one with the red blaze, so the Mazer Vibration Sword, the activated mode. Definitely looking beautiful as well. Definitely like the colors as well. So, it's technically, if you just count the swords, there's 4 swords, but 2 different types. That's the basic way I can say it. And then we get these 2 parts, which is a part of the slash Harkin, but not only, if you've seen the Code Geass series, they would always fire these wire type weapons, which is the slash Harkins. They would fire it, and then the end tip would like somehow transform and then basically stab or slash the enemy. So I believe like some of them I believe works kind of like the mass vibration sword technology, as far as I know, some of them, but still. So yeah, this is basically the unopened version like this, but this is the one that you use as like a knuckle. So if you don't want to use this one that looks like it's firing, you can always attach this onto the arm to make it look like you're punching or using this as a knuckle type weapon. So you get 2 of those as well, and then we get 4 slash Harkins that are firing. So 2 of them are obviously for the ones that goes onto the sides, and then 2 of them are obviously the ones that goes onto the arms. So you get 4 of those. I'll do a simple demonstration at the back section of the review. And then basically, other than that, here we have some other stuff. So let's go one by one. So number one, we get a energy shield, which is not that great. Obviously, I've heard rumors regarding this, so they did mention that the shield wasn't that great. But the one that, if you remember my Lancelot Club Robot Damashii, which now I remember that I reviewed recently, actually has a much more better looking shield than this. So yeah, this is just it's supposed to be clear green, but they didn't really do that well on the clear green. It's pretty much clear. And then we get this one, which is a action-based connector. So some of the old Robot Damashis, or depending on which series of Robot Damashis, they do not actually have a hole for a action-based peg. So sometimes you would end up using one of those Tamashii Nation stage that has a claw, but those claws don't really work that well. So what this is supposed to do is that there's like a small gap here. So what you do is supposed to plug this in basically you plug it in here and you can attach an action base right over here. But this one, this piece seems to be a little bit too big, so I might need to sand it down because it's not really going into that hole at the moment. And then here we have a lot of hands. So some of these hands you'll be using, some of them you won't be using. And the one of the hands that you won't be using is this one. No, actually not that. This one. So you get 2 trigger finger hands for left and right, but this does not. But this specific figure does not come with any gun type weapons. But my guess is that they just pretty much copied the original Lancelot Robot Damashii that had the Varus rifle. So which is why the hands were included in here. So once again, we do have a trigger finger, but you don't actually use them. And then here we have a karate chop style hand, an open hand, so nothing too special, pretty much meant for posing. And then here we have a more open style hand for, once again, for posing. And then here we have the multi-purpose hand, which is pretty much the hand that you're going to be connecting the mass vibration swords. And here we have the same looking hand, but the only difference is that the connecting point is on an angle. So if you want to do a more specific slash pose, I guess, this is what you use. Alright, so we've seen the basics, now let's go over the articulation. Let me get that down. One thing I should mention that I did do some modifications, and not like to a point of crazy. What I basically did was to get some nail polish and then just apply on a few joints or areas to tighten it up, and it worked very well. So yeah, if your figure is feeling a little too floppy, just use that method. Alright, so let's see what's the head. Now the head looks, I really like the overall color. Like, I do like the Lancelot as well of it because of how simple it looks, but the color scheme on this one is also pretty good. I mean, it could be the fact that it's really uncommon to see with a red and metallic gold color scheme mech out there these days, so maybe it could be that reason. So head-wise, I believe this should be the same as the original Lancelot. If I'm wrong, do let me know. So we can go down that much, up that much, and then 360 is possible, but I would recommend to be careful with those extra fins that are on the front or side, whatever you like to call them, and on the back, because they do feel a little bit fragile. But not to the point where if you drop the figure they would break. That's not the case, but yeah, I would assume that they could get blocked and you accidentally force it and then break it. And then on the top of the body we have these sensors, which is pretty nice. It's a small detail that I wasn't really expecting. I forgot what they were called, but yeah, these are basically sensors. Alright, and then let's get the shoulder. Now the shoulders are actually one of the parts that were originally stiff, and even stiff to this point. So you have a nice range of movement going on here. So you can go forward and backward, and you can go technically a little bit more to the back, because the main connection here is, I believe, technically a ball joint type connection, and the joint is pretty long than you think. Kind of a uncommon length. But because I think it's mainly because of how wide and big the shoulders are. So you have the shoulder armor itself, and you can move it up and down if you want to do so. And then if you look at the top, we have these like radiator looking design parts, which is pretty interesting. And then the arms can go about 90 degrees to the side depending on how you move it. It's mostly because the shoulder armor is kind of colliding with the main body. And then you can go 360 on the entire arm. And then you do have a nice decent bend going on here. Well, not exactly too modern, but still good enough for how old this thing is. And then you still have your... Oh, actually, I'm going to take this off. Now, so one of the main issues I'm still having with this figure is that these parts sometimes fall off a little bit too easily. But right now, I think it's not too loose at this point. So with this, you can go 360, but kind of on the stiff side. And then you have your Robot Damashii hands, which the ball joint is on the arm, not on the hand. Alright, so let's see what we got on the back. Now the back, nothing too much. So for those who've seen my review, some figures of from Code Geass would have a opening cockpit, but I would say opening, but it doesn't really show the actual inside. It just, you have like a latch that can open up, and that's pretty much it. This one does not have that as well, so yeah. So we see all these holes going on here. So you have one hole there, one hole here, another hole here. I don't think these are considered holes, but still. So this one you see here, the biggest one is pretty much where you connect the sword sheaths going on here. So you have a peg right over here, and then you just need to plug it in. And yeah, it's a little bit stiff, but still it gets the job done. So you can lock it in place once you have it in, and there you go. So that's how it originally works. I'll show you guys later how it connects later. As far as I know, it's either this one or depending on which backpack you have, because they actually did sell the flight pack, backpacks or booster packs for the Nightmare frame. So I guess depending on which you get, you either attach on top of here, which for example like the Lancelot Conquest version, I would assume like the model kit will also attach on the top, but this one I believe depends on there's another one that has like just wings and you attach it to here. So it really depends on which booster pack or wing pack you have. Alright, so let's see the main body. Now the main body I believe is still one of the main problems I still have, especially I remember having problems with the Vincent being a little bit too loose. So I believe there's a single ball joint here and then another one on top, so you can go forward and backward quite a lot. So it's either the lower one that's loose or the top one that's always loose, so yeah. One thing I'm still having a little bit of issue is that you can see if you look at the main front, it's not really straightening up, and straightening that thing up is kind of tricky because it's really stiff sometimes. Alright, so there's not much for the body, that's pretty much it, and then the legs are pretty good. I mean, they have you can go forward about 90 degrees, and then backwards 90 degrees since there's nothing out there as well. Inside, I mean, decent enough. It's just the design that's colliding with the on the main middle section. And then bend-wise, we have a pretty decent bend going on here. We have a nice joint popping out as there. And then the slash harkins, these parts are actually connected as ball joints, so you just shouldn't have any big problems taking them off. And they don't really fall off that easily, so no need to worry. And then we have a nice, I believe, yeah, I can't say that, well, technically, this does look like a ball joint, but they basically have multiple joints going on here. And I think this part on the main middle might be a ball joint, but still, these parts are like, there's multiple joints going on there, so we have a nice movement going on here. We have a pivot that works pretty well. There's no toe bend on this figure, and then we can go down that much. And I believe the armor here does move a little bit. And then here we have these parts, which I can't remember the certain name, but they basically in the Code Geass series, these are the parts that pretty much give them the speed on the ground. So we have these wheels that can actually roll around. You can put them up when they're not in use, and then you can also move them to the side as well for specific poses or just for balance. So that's pretty good. Alright, so we've seen the basics of the figure, so I'll be right back with the equipment demonstration. Okay, I'm back. So currently, I basically gave the shield on the left arm, which is here. You can see it doesn't really do a good job to make it look like a shield. So if you remember the Lancelot club, it was a much more brighter green, and actually you can see the green now. This one you can barely see it, so not the great idea, not the best idea. And then the shield, the way how you connect it is that you have to take apart a few pieces. So number one, you can see where the original slash Harkin was. So you see this red piece right over here. So on each arm, there's actually a red piece on here. This is, on the middle section here, that is actually a separate red piece. What you need to do is that you have to take that piece off, and then here's the small red piece, and then you have to replace it with the one that actually has the shield effect part popping out. So it's not ideal. I mean, the Lancelot Club, what they did was that they actually gave you a whole slash Harkin part that actually had the shield on, so you just need to, you could just replace it with the current part. But this one, not so well done. But still, you have the slash Harkins, and these wires are also the bendable type wires, so you can do some crazy poses if you want to do so. And number two, I also remember what these were called. These are land spinners. And for the sheaths for the MVSs, they actually do have a left and right. Now, it's not really noticeable. With the naked eye, but on the pegs they actually have a left and right symbol here. So they have one that has L and then one has an R. So yeah, that's how you differentiate that. And overall, the connection is pretty solid. Once you have it in the peg, it's very solid. It won't pop out on its own. And you can see there's two joints going on here. One that's connected as a ball joint, so you can move the sheaths in any position you want to do so. And this one is just a peg. And then the sheaths also in the MVSs just pretty much plug in pretty well. They actually just clip on, so you don't need to worry them being like shaky or wobbly. Alright, so we're done with the basics. I'll be right back with some more equipment. Okay, I'm back. So currently the only thing I basically have left is to show the mass vibration sword. So currently we have them wielded on. The way how you plug it into the hand is that you literally plug it into the hand. You just plug the handle inside the hand. There's no gap on the side of the hand, so you just need to plug it in. So once again, they did a pretty good job with the painting on the sword, and I really love the design of these swords. Now, as much as I do like the Vincent, the MVS that came with the Vincent, they didn't really look like swords. I mean, granted, they did have another feature, but still, they didn't really feel like swords. And yeah. If you are wondering, you can wield these swords as well. I just want to clear that out. And then for those who are curious or those who are not really used to Code Geass Robot Damashi, here is a size comparison with a typical HG from Gundam Origins, and then here is a more recent Robot Damashi Ver anime. So you can see they're pretty much roughly the same height around that point. So once again, although Robot Damashis don't really have a scale, so just because they're the same size as a HUC Gunpla, which is 1 to 144 scale most of the time, that does not mean they are the same scale. I would like to point this out. A lot of people seem to get the wrong idea where, oh, so this is, since the HG is 1 to 144, Robot Damashi Ver anime from Gundam is also the same height, so they should be the same scale. Technically, sometimes this does work, but depending on the mobile suit or depending on the series, that is not the case. Knightmare frames are generally more smaller than the actual Gundam or mobile suit from the Gundam universe. So yeah, you can't say they are the same scale. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the review. So this was the review of the P-Bandai exclusive Robot Damashii Lancelot trial. If you guys got any questions or requesting, comment below. I still have more stuff to buy and build and make reviews out, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time.